Hey guys, it's Jessie with Omaha Mom Talks, and I have some exciting news. I am partnering with Edwards Auto Group, a local car dealership with locations in Nebraska and Iowa, for a fun partnership called Mom versus Machine. Every couple of weeks, I'm going to be test driving a new family vehicle and giving it the full mom review. We're taking it out of the showroom and into the hands of me and my family of 4. We're going to be seeing if it can handle car seats, snacks, strollers, backpacks, how easy it is to clean, how much room do we have, and I'll be giving you my honest thoughts. If you have a car that you have been eyeing, let me know. If you have any must-have amenities when looking for a car, share them with me and I'll be sure to give those a closer look. Follow along and see which car can actually keep up with our family chaos. Hey everyone, welcome back to Omaha Mom Talks. I'm your host, Jessie Gutierrez. I'm a mom, maternal mental health therapist, and just another human who's figuring out this world right alongside you. If you're a mom who's balancing a lot, maybe it's family, identity shifts, career, healing through your own trauma and anxiety, you're in the right place. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that I hear so often in my private practice, and also I've experienced myself, which is mom guilt. And specifically today, I want to dive into mom guilt versus intuition, because yes, there is a difference. And yes, you can learn into how to heal from anxiety and stress, as well as leaning into your own knowing without always being hijacked by that guilt and anxiety or fear. So grab your favorite beverage and let's get into it. So today is a solo episode. I first just want to say thank you to everyone for listening to Omaha Mom Talks. We started this just about a year ago and we are already on season 3. So nobody is more surprised than me. And I just want to thank you all for joining me as I learn and navigate how to host a podcast, how to post on social media, as well as managing my home life and of course my private practice, which is my main business. So thank you guys so much. I just want to call this to name. So if you watch the podcast on YouTube, why? First of all, I don't know why people watch them on YouTube, but they're there to watch. And I don't like being filmed. It makes me a little bit outside of my head and I focus a little bit too much on things. So I'm really trying to pretend that the camera isn't there and then I'm just talking directly to someone. If you notice, if you're watching on YouTube, that I usually have a laptop, and it is a bit of emotional security blanket for me, but also I so badly want to provide you all with value and resources and information that I truly think can be helpful. And I can get very into the weeds. My ADHD brain can go off the rails fast and quick, and I don't want to do that to you guys. So I always have a guide to try and keep me on track. What's interesting about today's chat is this morning before I came over, I was looking at my outline to refresh my brain and I forgot to finish it. So I started this podcast episode with an outline for myself with some notes and key points, and then I forgot to finish it. So we will just be freestyling here in a few minutes, but let's get into it. So today our topic is unpacking mom guilt and learning how to lean into our intuition. So I think most of us that are listening are probably very familiar about what mom guilt is, but let's just, for the sake of being clear, I'm talking about that lingering sense that you're not doing enough, that you're messing up, that somebody else is doing it better, or that you're somehow supposed to just know how to do things or how to fix things. In my private practice supporting women and moms, I see it so often. And it's often this pervasive feeling of not doing enough. As a parent, I hear so often the theme of I'm not a good mom, or that made me feel like a bad mom, or I'm not doing things right, or somehow these decisions that I'm making are going to mess up my kids. Maybe this sounds familiar to you. I also see a lot of second guessing yourself constantly, asking questions, ruminating on past decisions like, did I let them stay up too late? Was that decision too strict? Am I being present enough? Mom guilt manifests and shows up often as anxiety, and we often see a lot of comparison to other moms or other women. And, we see this pressure online. There's unspoken shoulds, cultural and societal expectations, and just this fear that someone is silently judging how you are doing it and that you're not good at this whole parenting thing. Most of us, when this is happening, it's not coming from a place of your personal values. It's coming from this noise and external pressure and other people's opinions. Here's an example of an everyday mom guilt moment that I've heard plenty of times, and this is something that is straight from the book of Jessie, and I've experienced myself. So this is the I lost my patience guilt. So to set the scene, your child has asked you the same question repeatedly, again and again and again. And the 12th time, you eventually snap. You use a sharp tone, you maybe yell, you're impatient, and you're just showing up in a way that you've promised yourself, I'm not going to do that again. And then instantly rushes in this guilt. Why did I do that? I'm the worst mom. Who yells at their kids like that? Why couldn't I be more patient? And mom guilt loves to show up like right after what I call a human moment. Another one that I hear often and that I have experienced myself is this working mom tug of war guilt. So a lot of working moms that I support, and as a working mom myself, I hear a lot of anxious, guilty feelings about should I be home more? Am I focusing enough on my family? Are people going to judge me that my kids are in daycare and that someone else is raising them because I'm prioritizing my job? And then I hear, when these moms are at work, they're thinking about their kids. And when they're with their kids, maybe they're thinking about work. And it can just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't win. I'm stretched so thin. And that guilt is just whispering, but you should be doing more and you should be doing it flawlessly. So that is that guilt talking. And it's often rooted in shoulds, comparisons, and fear of judgment. I think it's important to note that guilt isn't always bad. Sometimes guilt can nudge us to realign with ourselves, our values, or change the way that we show up. Guilt is a natural human emotion that we all experience. But when it becomes constant, strong, pervasive, or maybe it's like the soundtrack of your life, or punishing you and making you miserable, that is when it's problematic and we need to take a look at it. Here are some signs you might be experiencing mom guilt. You never feel like you're doing enough. You replay parent decisions over and over again in your brain. You feel shame after setting boundaries, and you're triggered for a long time by what other people think or say about you. Now let's move over to this conversation about intuition and kind of why it matters and how it relates to this mom guilt and anxiety. So intuition is that quiet, steady knowing that shows up when something just says in your gut, this matters, pay attention. It's not fear, and it's definitely not shaming you like that voice of mom guilt and anxiety. For me, I think of mom guilt as like this frantic, chaotic, busy, stressful energy versus intuition, which was much more calm, steady, and it doesn't feel emotional. It is much more like a nudge, a voice of clarity. Maybe it feels like a quiet, deep knowing inside of you. And often when we listen to our intuition, we feel a sense of peace when we have made that decision. Intuition also, it isn't about following trends or parenting advice or books or what people say you should do. It's really about knowing yourself, your values, and your kids in a way that nobody else does. Here are some characteristics of intuition. Again, intuition is calm and clear, not frantic. Unlike guilt, intuition is not fear-based. It's not that emotional toll on you. It says something's off here or something feels a little out of line and you feel it rather than panic. If you're watching, when I'm talking about feeling it, I'm dropping down into my chest, into my body, because that's where I have my sensory, I can feel. And then that panic, for me, it's in my brain. It's chaotic and it's up here. Intuition comes from this tuned in presence, not from trying to prove that you're a good mom or responding to some sort of external pressure or expectation. So why does intuition matter? We know that motherhood isn't just about what you do, it's also how you do it and your internal landscape. And being guided by your intuition means you're more connected to yourself, your child, and your values versus being ruled by other people or other people's ideas of what you should be doing. Because ultimately, that doesn't feel calming to our system and it's not sustainable without feeling some sort of repercussions. So I'm going to share a relatable example of a time where I listened to my own intuition. So I have two daughters. They're currently 4 and 7. And my oldest daughter, I first brought up ADHD concerns to our pediatrician when she was 5. And yes, I know that is very young. And I know people have thoughts about just, normal natural development and kids being busy and things like that. But as a mom and as a mental health therapist and as somebody who has ADHD, I had been watching her patterns of behavior, well, truly since she was born, but I had kind of been jotting down some notes since she was 3. And again, with our family history of myself and my husband both having ADHD, my radar was up. So I went to her pediatrician and I had notes in my phone, actual examples and behaviors. And I didn't even get a chance to get to those. I brought up the conversation and immediately was brushed off. Now, I like our pediatrician. I do. She's not perfect. She's human. But this was one of those conversations where I was really frustrated because there were 0 follow-up questions. She didn't want any examples of what I had been noticing. We didn't talk about different environments that we see or notice those behaviors. And there was just no curiosity and no referral simply because of her age. I walked away from that and I just inside had this deep knowing, okay, that's her opinion, but I know there's something there and I'm not going to let this go because I care a lot about my child and I want to help support her. So I didn't let it go. I made an appointment with a pediatric psychiatrist. We had an evaluation and spoiler alert, she has ADHD, just like her mom and her dad. So now through that diagnosis, we are able to understand her brain a little bit better. We can support her in ways in her school environment and at home that help her learn and grow instead of putting unrealistic expectations on her that don't fit with the way that her neurodivergent brain works. Because there is a lot of negative messaging that happens to undiagnosed neurodivergent kids that can make them feel like I'm too much or I'm not good enough or something's wrong with me. And I was not about to let that happen to my baby girl. So I listened to my mom intuition. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frantic. It was just steady and knowing. It was pretty non-dramatic. I felt confident in my decision and I listened to it and it made sense to me. So I know that you may be thinking, Jessie, how do I know the difference between mom guilt and intuition, anxiety and intuition? And I get it because sometimes anxiety and mom guilt does feel like intuition and we don't know, and the voice can get really loud. So let's chat some tools because awareness is great, but we also want to have some usable strategies when you're in the thick of it. So I'm going to give you some therapeutic and lived experience backed practices to help you get into the practice of learning to discern between mom guilt and anxiety versus intuition. And again, this is a practice. This doesn't just happen overnight, one and done. Now I'm intuitive. You have to practice these things. And some of these things that I am sharing with you today, maybe you've tried them already and maybe they didn't work for you, or maybe these are new to you. And I'm certainly not going to get into all of the ways that you can learn how to tap into your intuition. These are just a few tried and true ways that I have learned and that I share with my patients. So the first one is when you're feeling that anxiety or that mom guilt, naming it. So you may have heard the phrase name it to tame it. And this comes from mindfulness and self-compassion research and really does have evidence that when you are able to name and verbalize the emotions that are coming up for you, it doesn't take it away, it doesn't remove it, it doesn't make it all better, but it can give a calming sense, kind of like taking the edge off a little bit, so to speak. So when you feel triggered, pause, take a breath, and name it. That may sound something like, okay, this is my guilt speaking here, or this is my anxiety taking the driver's seat. So we're naming it first. We're not pushing it away. We're not saying that's silly. We're not saying you shouldn't feel this way. We're just naming it. We're validating it. And by naming it and validating it doesn't mean that you're saying that it's true or that it's facts, that it's where you live full time. It just means like, hey, I'm going to bring some awareness into this buzzing feeling that I'm experiencing. So number one, naming the voice and naming the emotion. 2, regulating your nervous system. And I know there's a lot of buzz going around about nervous system regulation, and I can't get into, all the ways to do that today because this really is such a specific individual and moment to moment practice. So what I mean by that is to regulate your nervous system, sometimes you need to up regulate, meaning you need movement. So maybe that's running, maybe that's shaking in place, maybe that's jumping jacks. And sometimes we need to down regulate. That's where we think about like deep breathing, mindfulness, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, naming 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can hear, those sort of practices. And so really, in order to lean into your intuition, we need to be practicing some of these regulation skills and figuring out what works for you. And again, sometimes we need that up regulation, that movement, that busyness to shake it all out, to discharge the stress, the tension in your body. And sometimes we need that down regulation, that present mindfulness slowing down of our body. And really, you're just going to have to practice it. Tip number 3, clarifying your values and your truth. So we all have values, and there's actually a lot of therapists are trained in ACT, which is a therapy that helps you get more rooted in your values. But you don't have to do that in order to take a look at your values. I just really encourage you to take a little bit of time, think about maybe what some of your personal or family or parenting values are and jot those down. When we become familiar with our values and we can really get that down to a shorter list. So it's not like, oh, I have 30 values and I want to focus on all of them. Well, maybe I do have 30 values, but I'm going to pick like, what are the 3 most important to me in this season of life? And I'm going to jot those down and I'm going to think about how can I stay rooted in my values and how can I make decisions not based on emotional reaction, but based on my values. So that eliminates that fear or that worry. And it's easy to say, am I making this decision based on this values or is this aligned with my values? That can really help us. So like for me, one of my values is I want to raise kids who feel safe, seen, and loved. And so I show up and try to prioritize connection with my kids over perfection. People who know me, they might not be surprised by this because if they come over to my house, there might be dishes in the sink or there's toys everywhere because I'm playing with the children and I'm prioritizing connection with them. And in this season of life, sometimes that means that I have to let other things go. And then again, once you know your values, you can kind of get into the habit of learning to check your decisions. Does this choice align with my values? If yes, it's likely intuition. If no, maybe it is guilt, anxiety, or some sort of externalized pressure. Also, it's important to just practice leaning into your intuition and listening to your body. Again, intuition often feels like this soft knowing. It's not a scream. Perhaps try journaling after you have made a choice or a decision and journaling about, I felt insert emotion when I made this decision and track what followed. Also, celebrating small wins when you do follow your intuition, even if it is imperfect. The win isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. And I always like to do like hand over heart and say to myself, I'm so proud of you, Jessie, for listening to yourself. It maybe went against the grain or went against what other people thought. But girl, you listen to yourself. One of my favorite things actually that my husband says about me is he wouldn't say that this is his favorite thing about me, I'm guessing, but he'll say, Jessie's going to do what Jessie's going to do. And he's right. I am, because I trust myself and I trust my intuition. Now, I also respect my husband and I chat things through with him, or I tell him, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And he'll tell me if he disagrees with it or if he doesn't. But ultimately, he knows like I am my own person. I trust myself and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Okay, so one of the things about tapping into your intuition is, and this is something, okay, so I'm going to chat about learning to listen to your somatics, to your body, what your body cues are telling you. A lot of the women that I work with, and myself included, we weren't taught how to lean into our body cues. In fact, oftentimes we were dismissed. So that may have looked like in your childhood, if you were nervous about something and someone told you, oh, you don't have any reason to be nervous, but your body was telling you and giving you a signal. And then maybe an adult or a caregiver was saying, oh, don't listen to that. And so those small moments over time, repeatedly, can teach us to disengage and no longer listen to our body cues. And so I really like to get into a practice of listening to my body. And that's something that I'm also teaching my children. And that's something that you can teach yourself and your children right along at the same time. When your body says you need rest, hey, baby, let's get some rest. You don't have to push through it. When your body says, I just really need connection, I need time with friends, making time, listening to what your body is telling you, knowing that when I listen to my body, that feels good, that feels in alignment. And what I'm giving to myself, that also allows me to show up in a healthier way for my kids. And so shifting from that mom guilt to intuition, it is definitely a practice. When I talk about pausing, it can be in the moment, like right when self-doubt or the triggering happens. It can also be later. It's a practice. So when self-doubt strikes, would I love, for someone to be able to get into the practice of pausing, reflecting, and then responding? Sure. But that takes time. And so maybe it's later after you've reacted or had the stressful response or experience. And then later you're in your thoughts and you're reflecting and you're pausing and you're tuning into yourself and your values. That's okay too, because this is a practice and we're all learning. Again, I think it's really important to ask yourself, whose voice is this? Is this my anxiety, or is this a value or a belief that I have? And tuning into your body. That intuition, again, is that more peaceful, calmer, knowing self. Also practicing compassion. So mistakes don't mean that you're a failure. They mean that you're learning and that you're human. I want to share with you guys a little bit too about, this is just a little personal because I share a lot about moms, obviously on Omaha Mom Talks and then also on my social media because I love moms and I support moms. But one of the great reasons why I am the mom that I am is because I was raised with a really great dad. And one of the best gifts that I think that my dad gave me was learning to trust myself, not in the somatic body experience way that I chatted about a moment ago, but let me explain. So my dad has passed away, but growing up and especially in my teenage and young adult years, he was my go-to guy. I called him for everything, all my little stressors and things that felt big and huge at the time. And he just always made time to listen. He always made space for me and my feelings. He never made me feel silly. I'm laughing as I'm thinking about it because a lot of the things that I called him about were silly, but he never showed that. He just always was available, held all of my feelings, and he listened. And the second thing that he did is that, and that I really appreciate about him, and I hope to give this gift to my children as well, is that he empowered me to make decisions myself. He really taught me how to pause, look at the situation, reflect, and think about it. And knowing like, I don't have to decide right now, because we know that that urgency can scream at us super loud. And I love that he didn't jump the gun and just go straight into telling me what to do, what I should do, or maybe what he thought I did wrong. He really just allowed me to come up with the decisions on my own. And that really helped me learn to trust myself and to believe that the answers that I was seeking live inside me. And that's something that I want for you, and that's something that I want for my kids as well. And I think that this is really important as we're raising our kids, because so often, right, we want to help our kids, and that can look like problem solving or telling them what we think that they should do. But I know one day I'm not going to be living on this earth anymore, and I want my kids to have the skills and the knowledge and the intuition to know that they can get through hard times without mom, that they are not reliant on me or their dad, and that I'm equipping them with that self-knowing, that intuition. And yeah, I'm not perfect at it, because sometimes I'm running short on time, and the problem they came to me with, I just want to fix it. But I really try to think about that lesson as my dad gifted to me, and just teaching me how to listen to myself. Well, final thoughts, y'all. I really, again, just want to thank you guys for listening. I know that this is a very nuanced conversation, and we're just kind of getting to the tip of the iceberg. But what I do want to remind moms is that you are not failing. You are navigating so much. Life is complex. It's an emotional world that we live in. And if you are somebody who is worrying, like, am I doing enough? Or did I do that right? That tells me that you have such a huge heart and that you love so deeply about your children and your family. And trust me, I get it. We are all doing this work, living this life together. Your guilt might be loud, but your intuition is very wise. The more you listen to it, the more you lean into it and get into this practice, the stronger it will become. It's like a muscle. What's funny is I often see moms who are postpartum and they're, struggling with indecisiveness and self-confidence. And they tell me like, gosh, I used to be so confident. And I say, hey, she still lives inside of you. Let's tap into that. She's in there. You've been through this major life and identity shift, but we can lean back into that self-confidence. We can find it. So just remember, you know more than you think that you do, and you can strengthen this muscle. If this episode has been helpful for you, or if you've enjoyed it, or if you feel like someone else could benefit, please do me a solid, share it, like, review. All of those good things help with getting the podcast out to more folks, which allows me to keep having these chats with you all, which I have really enjoyed. If you have topics on your mind or guests that you would like to see on Omaha Mom Talks, the podcast, shoot me a DM or send me an email at omahamomtalks@gmail.com. I love having these chats with you guys, and I want to make sure that we are bringing information that's important and relevant to you all. Again, thank you so much for listening, taking the time. Please follow along on social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm learning out social media, but join me, and we'll see you next time on Omaha Mom Talks. Thanks.